Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Career Cloud Radio. I'm your host, Michael Gardon. Today's guest is Tereka Wheeler. Tereka is a career and mindset strategist that helps ambitious women of color and working parents advance in their careers and learn how to discover their defined natural abilities to level up professionally while achieving work-life harmony, which is an amazing way to describe work-life balance. I love harmony. She's a wife and a mom of 3 amazing and very busy kids. In 2020, after successfully navigating several shifts and pivots in her professional journey, she decided that others could benefit from her experience. So she reflected on what helped her and how she successfully tackled challenges and barriers to ensure that she reached her goals. The answer she found was her defined natural ability, which she now calls her professional DNA. This concept is totally aligned with my concept of start where you are and know your circle of competence. Help anyone navigate a career change. So in March 2021, she launched Professional DNA podcast and website, create a space and community for every person learning to level up professionally, grow their business, improve their performance, or simply refocus their professional journey. The Professional DNA podcast is a weekly conversation to educate, liberate, and empower you to discover your defined natural abilities so you can become your best unique self. I'm lucky to have been on her podcast, and that's where we really hit it off. We speak the same language, so I was super excited to bring Tereka back to our podcast. Lastly, Tereka's really busy. In the works, putting together her very first live virtual conference called Expand 2022. It's a new career development and learning experience that serves as a one-stop shop where professionals across all industries and sectors can learn how to advance in their careers with focus on the mindset, strategy, and achieving work-life harmony. Expand is on November 18th of this year, so listen to the episode and get all the details. You don't want to miss it. I'm actually lucky enough to speak at this conference, and I'm really excited about it. So without further ado, here's my conversation with my new friend, Tereka Wheeler. Tereka, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm great, Mike. How are you?
I'm excited to re-listen to it because I felt like we had an awesome conversation, and I'm excited to kind of follow that up today. I want to start with you giving our audience a little bit of backstory. So start with just where your career has kind of taken you.
Yeah, for sure. I will tell you where I am right now, no one, not even myself, could have even thought that this is where I would be, because coming out of high school, I actually was fully committed to being a physical therapist. I was going to go to school. I was going to study sports management with a minor in kinesiology, and I was going to become a physical therapist. Life changed, completely shifted, and that is not the direction that I ended up going. I actually, coming out of being in school for probably 3.5 years or so, I met my college sweetheart, and we got married and started having a family and, did all the things. You built a home, and we moved to Texas. And in that time, I still wasn't really sold in what my career path was going to be, because I had completely abandoned this idea of being a physical therapist. And so I then said, well, you know what? I think I want to go into nursing. I wanted to be a pediatric oncology nurse. And I started doing the prerequisites for that. I worked at our local children's hospital in Austin, Texas, and started down that path. And then I had my daughter. And you couldn't have told me that in having my daughter, that was going to change my path again after I'd been doing these prerequisites, serving as a clinical assistant, on a pediatric oncology floor, learning all of the things. Very quickly, I got incredibly emotional. I was like, okay, this is different. I've never been this emotional before, but I don't know that I can be a pediatric oncology nurse and all that comes with, working with families and patients who have cancer, childhood cancer. So I said, okay, what's next? I knew that I loved healthcare, and I knew that I wanted to do something that I was able to just build. I'm super creative, love problem solving. And I had an opportunity to transition into this role where it was more like community building, coalition building, around child safety. And so I worked in this level 1 pediatric trauma center and developing child safety programs, which was amazing. It was a ton of fun. And in doing it, it allowed me to really start tapping into, which I know we're going to talk about later, my professional DNA, like what Tereka was really made out of from a professional perspective. So I was building programs. I was writing research. I was writing grants. I was, managing and building relationships with community members. I was helping to write legislation for the state of Texas for child passenger safety. Like my world and my eyes just opened up. And it was also at that time, like where I decided to go back to school and finish my degree. And so in doing that, I started to get clarity in the direction I wanted to go. And I had an opportunity right after graduation. So I was an adult learner, graduated at 33. I had an opportunity to move to the DC area and take what I was doing locally and statewide and start to do it at a domestic and international level. And so I worked for a global nonprofit for about 3.5 years. Same thing, childhood safety programming, but doing it for Fortune 400 and 500 companies, which was phenomenal. Phenomenal experience, phenomenal opportunity. Got to travel to some really cool places. I went to Malaysia. I went to Wiesbaden in Germany, like all of these really cool places. And I loved what I was doing. But it was in that season in my career that I also started to think again, what does Tereka really want? And Tereka needed work-life harmony. Tereka needed peace. I needed a really good space where I knew that I could be in a good place mentally and physically. And I wasn't in the best environment for that. And so I made a hard pivot into a different industry, but leveraging my transferable skills. Mm-hmm. And I went into project management formally and doing it through the kind of federal contracting side, which is what I do now. I manage federal contracts in the strategic communications and IT space, and I love it. And it pulls on everything that really makes up my professional DNA, my defined natural abilities to succeed. I'm a critical thinker. I'm a problem solver, all these different things. And it really started to help me like hone in on that. So yeah, that's where I am now. And I love it. And it's been a journey, but it also positioned me to start thinking about, well, what else? And that's how I started to become an entrepreneur and a business owner, and just thinking about how do you begin to monetize on your expertise and really broaden and have these multiple streams of income based on your multiple streams of interest and expertise. So that's like my journey in a nutshell. I left out like a couple of chapters in between. There's not enough time to go in there, but that's the bigger picture for how I, went from coming right out of high school into where I am now. And it's been a journey. It's been a ride.
Excellent. Well, you may have left some things out, but I've got plenty to dig in on. So I've got a couple of follow-up questions. So what I noticed out of that was like you had some pretty specific directions early on. Like you said, you wanted to go into PT and you started going to school for that. What was the I talked to a lot of guests about this idea of career discovery and like how you just kind of, it seems like everybody sort of learns it on the way, figures it out along the way. And it takes 10 years to figure out what you actually want to do or whatever. What was when you were thinking, I want to go into PT, what was it that was driving that decision? Did you have a family member that was in that, or were you just thinking like, this is healthcare and I think I have an affinity for this, but I'm not quite sure where my toe fits in the water kind of thing? How was that? How did that go?
That's a great question. So my family is an avid sports family, right?
Okay.
Like, everybody played sports, something or another. And I knew that I had like this interest in healthcare, but I didn't want to become a doctor. At that point, I really wasn't interested in being a nurse. So I started to kind of explore what are those other opportunities to be involved, but also to connect with something that I like, which was sports. And so that's how I kind of got to this place of physical therapy that I quickly abandoned. But I got there, but that's what was driving it. It really was a passion that I had, but also my environment, right? I don't know that if I wasn't like in a sports family, if you will, that's where I would have been drawn to. I think that's true for a lot of individuals. It's what you're exposed to and it's what's in your environment that kind of conditions you sometimes to make decisions because that's what you know.
I think that's definitely how it happens for most people, right? It's sort of this availability bias, right? Like the information that's available to me in terms of my parents or family members or whatever is how I get exposed to something. And we often, it's interesting, and I haven't cracked this nut, but I keep talking to people about this kind of conundrum because it's like that colors how we make a gigantic decision in our lives, right?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
we're exposed to a very small percentage of the things that we could possibly do to earn a living and to find fulfillment. And
Mhm.
that's what essentially drives,
Yeah, that's
what we do. I mean, I was in the same boat, except I didn't have a specific thing. I
Mhm.
was like, I don't know. I just don't know, period. And so, well, you got to get a degree. So, I mean, I know some things about finance, so I'm going to just do that. Like, you know,
Yeah.
and it took me a decade to sort of break that mold and figure
Mhm.
out something else. So, what then turned off PT in your mind? You said you kind of really quickly abandoned that. How did you know that that wasn't for you?
I think, to be honest with you, I think it was the shift, right? So I went from being very much focused on, you know, get the degree, get the degree, get the degree, and started like life started to happen, right? So married right out of, doing some college. And I was like, well, can I really continue to be a PT? Like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting ready to have a family and, do all of these additional steps. Physical therapists are practicing and they go through all the so I started to, which I wish I did it in some regard. Like I'm very pleased at where I am, but I started to question myself and I allowed all these little limiting beliefs to come in my head to make me believe that I couldn't do it anymore. Right. That said, there's no way you could do that. Perhaps you can still stay in healthcare, but do it inside the hospital. That way, you're not having to travel a whole bunch. You're not having to do all these different things. And I think that happens with people a lot that life happens, right? It transpires in the course of your day to day, and it triggers you to start questioning things that you care about. And I think that's what happened. I started to question an area that I loved and was really interested in. My family jokes all the time because I'm like the resident nurse slash doctor slash physical therapist in the house, right? Like that's it. Like I was an athletic trainer in college and studied a little bit of PT, but that in no way makes me certified. However, I take my kids, I do
Mhm.
them on my kids, like all types of things, right? So that knowledge is there and this expertise and this like love for it, it's still there. It's literally still there. My parents will call me today about a health issue before they call their doctor. I am nowhere qualified, but they will to have that conversation. But I think that's why the shift came. I think it was nothing strategic at all. It literally was circumstances changed. And I felt the need to abandon something because my circumstance changed instead of really thinking through, well, how might this work? Right?
Mhm.
How could this happen?
Yeah, to not, you know, correct me if I'm presumptuous, but what it sounds like is like this. You were you were struggling to see how that would fit into essentially what you now call work life harmony, right? Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
because you
that's
had this
it.
big
That's it.
exogenous change
Mhm.
of building a family, which maybe you weren't prepared for from a professional standpoint.
Right. Right.
And that, yeah, and instead of being in a position, maybe you weren't in a position to really think that through super well. Cause obviously I've been in the midst of the whole family thing as well. So
Right.
I get that. Um, okay. So then you were kind of like looking at, I definitely understand why you got out of pediatric oncology nurse. I get that. I know some oncologists and I know other people that work
Yeah.
uh, with kids and it's very difficult. But that was kind of your next,
Uh-huh.
I guess, experiment
Yeah.
in what
What?
might work, right?
Yeah.
Is that kind of what it sounds like? Okay,
That's
go ahead.
exactly what it was. It was an experiment. It was like, okay, well, now what? And what do I love? And it was like, I love kids. I love kids, right? And I want to see myself in some type of healthcare clinical setting. And what could that look like? And when I started to kind of blend what I could have an impact on individuals' lives, especially kids, and the fit was like, wow, how amazing would it be to work in an oncology unit and not only help them with their care, but really just help through these types of ups and downs and transitions. And so I got drawn to something that a lot of people will say, you're crazy. Why would you run towards that? There's so much pain and agony in childhood cancer, but there's
Mhm.
also so much joy and um like transformation that happens in that space as well. And I fell in love with it very easy. Like it's just like it was like I was at home, right? And I started to go down the path hard of wanting to like started back up school, started doing my prerequisites. Like that's what I was doing. And when I got pregnant with my daughter, um, I just the emotions and the hormones took over, and I was like, "There's no way." I was like, "What is this feeling?" Like I'm a pretty tough cookie, but I don't know what just happened. And I said, "Let me just think about it a little bit more." And I was like, "Gosh, yeah, no, I don't know about this." And I actually, I think I skipped a small step. I went from working in the oncology unit to actually working for our senior chief nursing director in the hospital, and did a lot of support for him. But that's what kind of positioned me to move more into that programmatic role. But it was like my trying to hang on to staying in that healthcare space. And I was like, I just can't let it go. And even right now, Mike, like even working in government contracting and being a project director across, IT and comms like projects, they also relate to health, all of them. That's the one thing that is stayed consistent, which I think is so important, that, you are actually connecting to the core values that you have and what things are important to you and what gives you joy and where do you leave impact and where do you really know that you want to make a difference, right? You want to have a footprint in that space. And for me, it's health and healthcare. And that has stayed with me no matter what. It's still there. And I love that. And I encourage people to do. I say all the time, do what you love so you can actually love what you do. And if you actually operate and function in spaces that you truly have an affinity for, you're going to see that type of fulfillment that you want in your career, because you're making sure that it's connecting to a core value. It's connecting to something that you truly care about.
Yeah, there's all sorts of ways that you can. I mean, people think about change, like job change,
Mhm.
industry change is like a
Mhm.
huge thing, right? Like, oh my God, I'm switching industries. But there's so many, there's so many businesses
Mhm.
in every type of industry, right? So you
Yeah.
can you can always keep this thread of working on or with some type of customer
Mhm.
population, or in your terms, like a patient population, right? In healthcare, like
Right.
there's so many ways that you can do that, that like
Mhm.
changing industries isn't that scary when you are really able to kind of like holistically get your head around all of the different options
I
of
agree.
where you can potentially work and be able to do that research.
Mhm.
Which is really interesting. So you obviously changed completely out of healthcare,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
defined healthcare industry, and you really kind of talked about how you did that by like taking these transferable skills, and that's something that I talk about a lot. There's a difference between like technical skills needed to execute a job
Uh-huh.
and the, I guess a lot of people call it meta skills
Mhm.
of,
Mhm.
that transcend job role or
Mhm.
industry. Talk a
Mhm.
little bit about like what those transferable skills were. How did you know you had these? And
Yeah.
that, and then like how you had the confidence to say like, I can bank making this change on these types of
Mhm.
skills.
That's such a good question, because I'd love to say that I had like this magic formula, right, of how to figure it out. And what I was forced to figure it out.
Okay.
Make those changes. I was forced to sit down and think about, what are you good at? And people talk about things like imposter syndrome, where someone will, you just don't believe that you deserve a seat at the table. You really don't believe that you're kind of as good as you are. Everyone around you might be, praising you and giving you that affirmation, but you just don't feel that. And I had those moments, but I had to like really think back and think about, well, what do people say you're good at, Tereka?
Hmm.
Like, what do you actually perform? Well, just pause for a minute. Like, okay, yes, you do good work. Great. You're always getting accolades about the work that you're doing. But what is it that you're doing? And what is it that you're doing consistently well? Company over company, position over position, project over project. And I started to create this like inventory list of like what makes me good at what I do. I'm just like, well, you're a creative problem solver. Like you don't just come to the table to try to solve a problem, but you're like so open-minded that you're ready to bring forth a creative solution, right? or you're very much an analytical thinker. And while math and you are not friends and you don't like math, you will leverage data and really try to conduct as much data analysis as you can to inform decisions that are being made, rather for a company, a team, a division. And you love strategy. Like when I was small, my mom said that my favorite thing was puzzles. Like I love strategy. I love like give me a problem and let me strategize the best ways to kind of get it done. And I started to have almost like a pattern of what was allowing me to be successful and to ascend within a particular career or title or position, or what was allowing me to ascend in a particular company. Once I have that inventory, that's what gave me the confidence because I knew, and I know now, I can take my data analytical skills just about anywhere. It transcends across industry. Like data is gold, right? I can take my critical thinking and strategic planning skills and take that just about anywhere because building a strategy has a very, lots of different types of methodologies, but a pretty clear cut one that if you know how to build the bones and the foundation of a strategy, you can take that and go do strategic planning for just about anyone. I am an incredible communicator and not just a communicator to where, oh, you have great verbal and written, communication skills. No, I actually am a good active listener to be able to take what people are saying, give it back to them in a way that's going to help them see additional insights or additional transformations that can happen, which is something that is incredibly valuable to companies to be able to be heard. And then from what they can't figure out themselves, because you heard them say it out loud, you can now help transcend that into a plan, right? Or you can now help transcend that into an action or some type of profitable product that they can, pursue. So it took me some time to get it and to really do that assessment. But once I did, that's what gave me confidence to where I don't care what job description I look at. Like I can think of times where I was looking for jobs, especially when the pandemic came in board and the government contracting world was a little bit like, ooh, what's going to happen here, right? Because government was going home and there's just so many things happening. And I remember applying for various positions and really thinking about what was next for me. And I wasn't concerned. I didn't have like the heart palpitations of, gosh, am I qualified for this job? Because I was confident and still am really confident in what I will bring to the table. And I think that's where professionals have to be. You have to get to a place to where you know that you know that you know the areas where you demonstrate value, no matter where you go, no matter what industry you're in, company you're in, team you're on, that you always have this package. And it's this value package that you bring to the table every single time. Right. And I think, because I know we're going to talk about it, like when you're able to know that value you bring to the table, the moment you start exploring adding additional kind of areas or streams of income and going into entrepreneurship or all these other different areas, you're confident in a core set of value add that you have that it just helps you with confidence. And I will tell you, if I hadn't done that, I don't know where I would be because I think I'd be questioning my every move, right? But I don't question it because I know what any individual or company gets when Tereka comes to the table.
Yeah, this is just fantastic conversation right here because like I think about this like what you were calling your essentially your professional DNA and the things that
Right.
knowing where you provide value, right? Like
Uh-huh.
it's I call that essentially circle of competence. So
Mm.
it's not only so there's a universe this big of all the things that you could know, right? And could be good at. And then there's a much smaller subset of what you actually know and what you know that you know that you know, like as you said. And I talk about that as like you have to know that. And that concept comes from Warren Buffett, the famous, uh, investor, right? I think of a lot of things through an investing lens. So you have to know that because that's your rock solid foundation. That's your asset that you can then apply leverage to grow it smartly or use it to solve certain problems and stay away from other problems that you just shouldn't even be involved in, um, to essentially get the most growth out of yourself. So like, it's so important. But I just got a question, the other day, like, okay, Mike, you're talking about how you need this to really understand your circle of competence. How do you do that? And so you kind of came up with this inventory, right? And I think you really touched on, I think you said something of like, I listen to what people said that I did, right? So one of those ways is definitely external feedback. Like, how did you go about gathering that external feedback in a way that you could sort of package it and say, like, this is my rock that I stand on?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so good. So, and I know that everybody doesn't love these things, but peer reviews, like performance reviews, are golden to me. And even in the times where companies don't do like a formal performance review, I will figure out a way to do it. Like I'll figure out a way to actually get it done, because I think you have to be able to get feedback. You have to be able to hear from people and like from individuals what they actually think of you. And when you hear what they think of you, you also have to be in a position to where you can say, okay, here are all the positive things that you have said about me. How can I break that apart into like some consistent skills and things, the way I perform, year over year? So that's one way. It's like I actually went back to my performance reviews and looked at what my supervisors were saying about me, right? Like what they were actually saying. I would go back. The other thing I did is I actually asked people, like, and I did it in a way that was more like I don't know if you've heard like of a 360 review where you kind of send out surveys. So I made my own 360, if you will. And I wanted to hear from peers. I wanted to hear from team members that I had worked with over the years. I wanted to even hear from like staff on what they thought areas that I could grow and where areas that they thought I was really strong in. So I wanted the feedback on both sides. And that was an incredibly scary thing to do, because I was like, oh goodness, some people, and I didn't just pick everyone who I knew would say amazing things. Like I asked some people who might not have great things to say, because it was really important for me to get a good list and inventory. And then I looked at that and I was like, okay, there's a couple of things that keep coming up over and over again. I guess you are kind of really good at like program planning. Like you've made some amazing programs, Tereka. You've actually helped Fortune 400 and 500 companies decide on programs that they can make huge impact, and like do some social good. Like, yeah, you're kind of good at that. Okay. And I just kind of started comparing. And then that gave me the confidence. So see how I couldn't start with myself. I actually started externally. That gave me the confidence to then sit with myself and say, well, what else? Like, this is a really great list. I'm hearing from these other people, but okay, well, what else you got? What else you got, girl? And so I started to think about it. And that's how I came up with like my inventory, my defined natural abilities to succeed. Like the things that I can just, again, keep in my little value backpack and take wherever I go.
Yeah, it's so key and it's so powerful, because I struggle with this big time, but I did essentially the same thing that you did. You probably did it in a much more sophisticated way. I tell people, like, get a Google form, right? I can give you some question ideas. I think one that I love, for somebody like me, it's definitely imposter syndrome. I assume that everything that I know, everyone else knows, that kind of thing, right?
Yep.
Completely downplaying my skills. But like, one of my favorite questions is like, what am I known for? Like, just what is somebody, when you think of my name and you've worked with me, what's top of mind, right? And I think just even that one question, and then the flip side is like, what do you need more out of me in the next 6 months?
Yeah.
Something like that. Even if you just ask those two questions or a variation of them, you're going to get a lot of, I think you're going to understand how people see you a lot more. And it's probably going to surprise you, because if you're anything like me or Tereka, you're like, oh, I don't have any skills. Like, I don't know how to say this. Right. But then hearing it from other people,
Right.
help you package and define it a little bit. So I love that. And yeah, I love this idea of kind of if you're in a situation where you don't have like real strong performance reviews, or your one-on-ones are like right at the end of the year, and you're not like figuring out how to do your own. Like I love that idea. So like when you went through this whole exercise, that was the basis of your professional DNA, right?
Yeah,
And what you're kind of teaching people now.
Yes.
Okay. So talk to me a little bit about, you have a full-time job, but you still are cranking out the 9 to 5 and doing excellent work.
Yeah.
And you've also become an entrepreneur to help kind of serve predominantly women of color and working parents who are in your same situation, and help them to grow professionally in the ways that you kind of have. So talk to us a little bit about what you're doing, the business, and how you're trying to serve.
Yeah, absolutely. So believe it or not, people always ask the question, why did you start your business, right? What made you? Are you exiting out of your 9 to 5? I started the business because I wanted to have a bigger impact. I wanted women in particular, but also working parents, and what I say as parentpreneurs, right? So those who are in their 9 to 5, and they're also exploring entrepreneurship, that you can win at home and you can win at work, right? Whatever you define as work, you can win in both areas, and you can do so without the mom or dad guilt. You can do so without, sacrificing work-life harmony. And if we pause on that for a second, I mean, when I talk about work-life harmony, it is very different from work-life balance. Work-life balance is like this, 50-50 on-off switch. I work and then I have my personal life, and it's very separated. And I still think that's realistic. That's not how life comes at you. And we all have these different dynamic areas of our life. We have travel, leisure, health and wellness, and fitness. We have our finances. We have our professions and careers. We have our spouses, our children. There's all these different pieces of the puzzle. There is no 50-50 of that, right? It's like looking at like a diversified investment. Like it's all over, right? It's on purpose. There's intention behind that. And you can't always give 50% to the same thing. So when you think about work-life harmony, it's about work-life integration and things coexisting together. Meaning I'm very present when I'm mom, right? Or when I'm wife, but I'm also very present when I am project manager and director, or when I am CEO of my company. And I give the attention with intention, so that when I'm ready to kind of turn this piece off and go into the next, I can again give attention with intention. And I can schedule my time accordingly, which means, every day throughout the day, yes, I may have a 9 to 5, but sometimes there are things that happen throughout that day that are related to family. Sometimes there are things that happen throughout that day that are related to my self-care, because I make sure every single day I take 15 minutes to at least reset in the day, because there's so much going on that I need to pause. And just like self-care to me is not like the Saturday, Sunday hashtag. Self-care should be a part of your lifestyle, right? Which means you've got to be intentional about where you insert it. So with that, I had to really think about how I was going to go about achieving that work-life harmony piece, right? But as a professional, 9 to 5, it took me to experience some things, I think, in my career that I didn't want others to experience, which is why I built my company, which is T. Wheeler Strategic Solutions, and became a career and work-life strategist, because I wanted individuals to understand that they could ambitiously go after, like unapologetically go after what they want as a professional. But you can do it without sacrificing being a good mom, being a good dad, being a good wife, being a good husband, being a good partner, whatever it may be. Like you don't have to sacrifice that piece. You don't have to sacrifice not having a personal life because you want to excel in your career. And at the same time, guess what, guys? You don't just have to stick at career. If there are other things, especially as you do that inventory, you know what you're really good at, and there's other things you want to do, then how can you monetize on that expertise, right? And give your experiences and your knowledge and your value to others. So that's really why I started that shift. and starting to add being an entrepreneur to my plate. Love my 9 to 5. Like I said, I love project management. I love what I do, and I'll continue to do it until, I maybe don't want to do it anymore. But my transition or addition, I should say, of being a entrepreneur was really because I wanted to help others see that they could do it too, and they could win in both areas of their life without feeling like they have to sacrifice, other pieces. So that's really where it came from. That's why I started it. I wanted to help others see that they could do it too. And seeing that transformation in my clients is just like, it's the biggest smile ever. Like I get so excited when we get to the end of a coaching or we get to the end of a VIP day or whatever, and a client sees like that type of transformation, or I get an email because someone listened to the podcast or they read something that I wrote, like seeing that they have the aha moment, like just comes all over me because I remember what it felt like to not, to be in places where they are. And I remember what it felt like to transition out of it.
So a couple things. Like first, I mean, in your transition, because I love to talk about the transitions. Like in your transition,
Yeah.
just going back to what we've kind of built on in this episode, you didn't say, I want to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to go be a yoga instructor, right? Like, and do something that you don't have competence in or a natural ability for. You took a pause and you said, here is what I'm good at and what I have built today, as Tereka. And you started right there where you were with the skills that you had.
Yeah.
And you figured out another way to use those skills in an area that you're passionate for. Because what I always say is the easiest plan, the best plan, I should say, is one that you can adhere to, the one that you can keep doing. It's not the most complicated one. It's the one that you can keep making progress on. And the only way that you do that is if you have the skills or have the ability to acquire the skills with relative ease and you have an interest in what you're doing. But so many people say, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I think I like building clay models or something. Right. And then it dies. Right. Like, but you took your foundation, you took your core asset, and you said, how can I use this or leverage this in a new way to do it? So that I think is number one. And then the second thing I wanted to ask you about is you say you can win at both ends, or you can win in everything. And I completely agree with you, but it also sounds like too good to be true. So what is like needed? What do people have to give up? What are the sacrifices, or what has to be in place for people to win at both ends?
That's such a good question, because you're right. And I hear that all the time. Like, okay, I hear you, right? That's too good to be true. But it's not, because you have to be willing to do a couple things. One, you have to be willing to shift your way of thinking and really shift your mindset. And I know, mindset, I'll be honest with you, Mike, I feel like over the past 2 years, the word mindset has just been like thrown all over the marketplace. But for your listeners, guys, mindset is real. It is real. It's your perception on life. It's your perception on how things are going to turn out. What are the outcomes going to be? And you can choose to have mindsets that are in the positive lane, because there's multiple different mindsets, right? There's a gratitude mindset, a success mindset, a growth mindset. It's all types of mindsets, right? A limitless mindset. There's all different types. Or you could be in a mindset that is more negative and pessimistic and starts to invite limiting thoughts, which turn into limiting beliefs. And once those limiting beliefs get into your subconscious mind, it's very, very difficult to kind of make the flip, right? You got to do a lot of work to get those limiting beliefs out of your head. But if you're willing to go down that road to really shift your perception of the outcome that you want in life, like what you know that you deserve and you desire, then you can win at home and work. The number one is mindset. The second thing you need is a strategy. And this is where we go wrong. We start to approach life at the same speed in which it's coming at us. We start to approach life at the same speed in which it's coming at us, instead of taking control of time, which I know we believe that we can't, but you can, pausing and being strategic about the moves and the decisions that you make. And that's why having a strategy is so important, especially when you're building a strategy that is a career strategy, right? Or even I've worked with folks to do like work-life harmony strategies. When you're sitting down and thinking about strategy is a big little fancy word for approach. What is your approach going to be? And then what's the action plan that's going to support that approach? You want to win at home and at work? Well, let's start breaking this thing down of what are the things that you actually want to achieve at home? What are the things that you actually want to achieve at work? And then let's start to make goals that go up to a larger vision. Because honestly, Mike, a lot of people are challenged. Like you guys may be listening right now. Think about, do you have a vision for your overall life? Not a vision for your career, not a vision for your family, but truly a vision for yourself and where you want to be in the next 5 to 10 years. Because when you have that vision set, then you can start to build strategies and goals and action plans that are going to support the ultimate vision. And the vision is not just about one or two areas, it's holistic, right? So when I talk about you're able to win at work and life, when you have a vision that is encompassing of personal and professional work and life, then you're going to start developing goals and strategies that are on the work and life. And when you start to do that, we're integrating the way that we live every single day. So how do you win at work? How do you win at home? You start living it as life. It's the thing. You're one person. You're not two people, right? You're one person. So you have to start living and thinking and strategically planning that way for what you're doing. That's how you win at home. And that's how you win at work at the same time. You need the right mindset and you have to have a strategy. And I love what you said. What are you willing to like actually adhere to, right? And repeat, like what habits can you actually commit to doing that are going to set you up for success, right? In that plan. But that's how you do it. Is it easy? No. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you're going to buy back time that you don't even realize that you've lost because you would have been strategic about how you are going to spend time with self, family, friends, work. You're going to start being incredibly intentional about it because you're going to be strategic and you're going to think differently about it because you are going to be think about where you want to be and where you desire to be. And you're going to start working to affirm it. So, and every step, every plan, every goal, the dollars you spend, what you invest in versus what you don't, whether if it's time, energy, resources, or money, will start to be different because you're striving to reach a certain vision for your life, right? That encompasses home and work. That's my thought around it. It's like, it sounds very Disney World, like up here, like it sounds very like fantasy that you can, but you can. You absolutely can win at both. Some days you might not feel like you're winning. And I'm not going to sit here and say every day feels amazing because life is life. But for the most part, you're taking control. You're like the chief execution officer and you can execute on your time, energy, resources, and money in your life every single day. And when you have that type of control, you're winning. You're winning.
I love it. Couldn't agree more. Mindset is real, folks. And just as an example, right? Like little quotes and things hit people different ways, right? I just heard this one the other day and I use it now. You don't need a job. You need a revenue source. That is a mindset shift. That's a complete mindset shift, right?
Yeah.
You can stop thinking about, I have to get a job, and you can expand your set of options just through thinking about that one sentence, right? That's a mindset shift that people can start with. And I've been an entrepreneur for a lot of my, that just hit me, right? It's wild. And then on strategy, love what you said. I would just add, like, a lot of times what I've tried to do and what I've seen other people do successfully is also think about what you don't want.
Yes.
View it from the negative and how can I remove those things from my life? And what does that create openings for? And I think like just viewing it from a little bit different perspective like that can be a mindset shift in and of itself. But I love everything that you're saying on here. All right. So I want to get to the biggest thing that you're doing that's coming up. You're going to do a virtual conference. I want you to talk all about this. You've asked me to speak. I'm so flattered. I'm happy to, and I think I go to bed every night thinking about like I should say this and that, or would Tereka like that, or I don't know. So I'm trying to figure out and hone in on it all. But please talk to us about the conference and what it's all about.
Yes. Well, first of all, I am so excited to have you at the conference because our conversations have been great and we're going to keep having them. And, I think you're stuck with me. So I hope that's okay. Because we have great conversation, but I wanted to do something different and provide a learning experience that is not just focused on the technical skills in industry, but also looking at soft skills. And I love that you talk about like the meta skills, like what are those broader things that we really need to be focusing on to develop in our careers. And I started thinking like, how does that come to life? What does that look like? And the word that I couldn't get rid of was expand. And the other word I couldn't get rid of was focus. And so in November 17th and 18th to be exact, the inaugural Expand conference, career development conference will launch. And it is Expand 2022. It is a career development conference that in its first year will be live and virtual, right? We're using an amazing virtual platform. We're really excited about that. And the theme is leveraging the power of focus and how you can actually advance in your career by focusing in on mindset, focusing in on career development, and focusing in on work-life harmony and kind of like lifestyle design. Because as professionals, you actually can write your own story. You really can. As much as it seems like you can't, you really have the ability to control the narrative here, but how? And what are the types of skills and conversations that we need to have with, I would say, career development experts and, industry leaders in these spaces. So we're going to dig in. We're going to have some great keynotes, breakout sessions. We're going to do, what do you call it? Speed dating, networking style to get folks opportunities to engage and build networks. I tell folks all the time, 80 to 85% of jobs are never even posted, guys. If you're looking to make a job or career transition, you need to network and you need to get to know people and engage and build relationships. This conference is really for those who they know, like without a shadow of a doubt, I'm supposed to be doing more. Like I definitely know that I'm supposed to be doing more. I want to do something different. I just need kind of that boost to think about where are the areas that I need to expand. Where do I need to take up more space in my career, more space in my team, more space in my company, more space in my industry? And we're going to have some amazing speakers to help you really think through that and really think about how do you do it in areas of mindset, career development, and work-life harmony. So super excited about it. Registration opens September the 19th. Cannot wait. I encourage folks to follow in a couple places. So if you're on Instagram, definitely following professional_DNA, or we actually just recently launched a handle just specifically for the Expand conference. And it's at Expand Conference, super simple and easy to remember. And then we'll be standing up our website will launch with our registration to where folks can go on, learn more about the conference, learn who our keynote speaker is, and some of our speakers that will be joining us. And we'll be announcing speakers, over the next months or so as well, just kind of rolling those out. But I'm really excited about it. I am a longtime learner. I love to learn. I love to grow. And I want others to kind of experience learning and growing in just a different way. It'll be fun because I'm all about learning in a fun space. So it definitely will be fun. Lots of high energy and an opportunity for folks to really leverage focusing on their professional growth and development. And, we know what you focus on expands. What you actually put so much attention is going to expand. It's where you put the attention. If you put it in positive spaces, you have the opportunity to expand in those positive spaces. If you put it in not so positive and negative spaces, may have the unintended consequence of actually expanding in areas not so great. So what better way to actually leverage the power of focus so you can start expanding in areas in your career that you need to. So I'm excited about it. I can't wait. I've done conferences for, other companies and all. I mean, I've planned conferences. I've just never done it for, myself, right? And like for my company. And this is going to be an exciting venture. And I'm already thinking about 2023 and being in person and going back to my hometown, which is Austin, Texas, and doing it there. But first things first, we got to get through November and get through the first year. I know it's going to be great. And I cannot wait to have you, Mike, as one of our speakers.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I'm really excited about it as well. We'll make sure we have links to everything you mentioned in the show notes so people can follow along and get more information. Just from now and leading up to the conference, you'll be hearing a little bit more about it from me as well. Just reminders and everything, because Tereka and I are fast friends, and I'm going to promote it as well as I can. And I'm excited to speak. And so anybody listening, drop me a line if there's anything that you're curious about that you think would be great for me to expand on, and we've talked about, or anything like that. Happy to work it in. But I'm excited. And now that you've talked about 2023, possibly in Austin, I love Texas. I love Austin. So let's make that happen.
Yes. I'm so excited about that. I mean, I'm born and raised in Austin. I'm a little biased that it's, like in the top 3 best cities in the country.
Yeah.
It was like, to do it live, what better place than like to go home to my good old Austin roots and have some great relationships and friendships there, that from a space perspective, right, to make something like that possible. So I'm really excited about it and can't wait for 2023. But we're going to make 2022 one of the best live virtual experiences for professionals that we can. And I would love to have all of your listeners to participate. So early registration, again, it opens September the 19th, and stay on the lookout for updates.
Excellent. Tereka, thanks so much for being here. I love talking to you. I'm really excited to continue our friendship into the future. Best of luck to you, and thank you so much for being on.
Same to you, Mike. Same to you. And as you know, we will be talking soon.
All right. Perfect. Take care.